Welcome to JHGWoodcraft. I'm Jedi, and today we're going to be building out a flight board like you'd have at your local brewery or your favorite pub. Got a board to put what your different drinks are on. Ours are unique in that we include an inlaid whiteboard as well as branding on the individual boards. So today, the things we're going to go over is not only building out the board, kind of materials we use. In this case, we're going to be doing a nice mahogany for this board. And we spent a little bit of time on the CNC, show you how we cut those out, even a little bit of time in the software, as well as actually burning in the customer logos. So without further ado, hope you enjoy this. Grab a drink. Let's get started. We are on to the actual flight board. This is, so the way this is done, let's look at the back side, which is what I'm going to work on first. You just put a straight line down, and I added a chamfer, which is here, chamfer toolpath. And on the settings for the chamfer, you just want a really shallow cut. So this is a 3/4 inch piece of material, or roughly, and I'm going to go less than or just a little over 1/4 of an inch in depth on the chamfer. And what this will give me is a little handhold on the back side. All right, so then we move to the front side, and we're going to cut that first. And here, I'll actually show what this looks like. So we click on the tool on this button here. This will show us what that'll look like. And I'll go preview that selected toolpath. And it's just going to put these little lines, right? And then ultimately, I'm going to cut this out in the middle of the line. So I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so we're switching over to the other side. Here, I'm just doing 3 circles. You hit the space bar and you can look at the properties of that object. That one took me a little bit to figure out because I didn't see a real quick shortcut or anything like that to do that. So when I created it, I just specified my radius, and it's the size of the whiskey tasting glasses for this particular company. I'm going to make this groove here, which I'm just using a 1/4 inch bit to create a cutout, and I'm going to inlay chalkboard. This is actually going to be burned in versus cut, but I do have it here as an option. And then we're cutting in some text here. So on each of these, so on the cutout, kind of go backwards. Settings on this that are important. All right, so you can see here, I'm cutting on the line. I'm cutting with an end mill, so that's just a straight cut through. And I'm using a 1/4 inch end mill bit. We're going to do it in 4 passes, so it'll kind of cut it down slowly because it is 3/4 inch. Those are the key things about that. On both, so on this inlay, we're cutting this down to the same depth as the material that we're going to inlay it with. Again, a 1/4 inch. And then the cut pockets, we're going to cut those out down a 1/4 inch, using the 1/4 inch bit as well, and just giving that enough for the cup to sit into. For our text, we're going to use the engraving tip, and I want to fill it. So the cool thing about V-CarvePro is you can go through and do all this work, select all your tool paths. Now again, I'm going to burn this in, so we're going to leave the logo out of the view. Go to preview tool paths, and tell you what, we're just going to do preview all tool paths. This will put everything in. We can ignore this because I'm not going to cut that. I'm doing a chamfer around this edge, and then we're going to cut it out in the middle of that so you can see where that goes through. There's your cutout. We look on the other side. there's those little handles that I talked about. So this will be our board, and then we'll inlay chalkboard. So the next thing we're going to do is burn the customer logo onto the workpiece. So essentially what I've done is I've measured out the spacing where I want that workpiece. And so this is this red box. It's just a tool alignment within Lightburn that shows me essentially the open space on that workpiece, and I'm going to line it up to the bottom left corner. And then I add the logo in and align it centered in that box, so that way I know that piece is going to end up right where I want it when I burn it. The other thing I'd use, if you're not familiar with it, in order to get the image just right, is this website called Image Burn, or Imager, IMAG-R, and I'll stick that in the comments, in the description. So essentially you just upload your image, crop it. I always resize mine to 318 DPI and then adjust the image to the size it needs to be, but that 318 is what works best for my Artur LaserMaster 2. And then the material you're going to put it on, and then download. And then you've got a ping that works great for burning. And then when you go to burn it, on the properties of this image, so I'm going to just double click on that because that's the layer I'm on. Notice I've got pass-through set. And so pass-through essentially takes all of the changes that were made to the image in Imager and just passes it through, and Lightburn's not really doing any of the work. It's all essentially pre-processed. So Lightburn is just simply burning what it knows about. So that website pre-processes the images for me. You can bring a regular image in and let Lightburn do the processing for you, but I found for me it works best to pre-process it on Imager, drop it in, set pass through, and let it go. The other way I'll often do it is just convert it to a vector image or do a trace within Lightburn. Depending on what you're doing, that can really work well, or it can work not so well. So bring the image in, you right click and do trace. What this will do is try and figure out where all the areas of the image are, and everything that's pink here is what would actually be burning. So it's tracing that pink area. So that would be where all my dots are. So this one actually doesn't look too bad, but we're not doing a trace. We're just burning the image itself.
All right, one of the things that you're gonna want to do is make sure we got everything aligned both on the hardware and the software. So jumping over here to the hardware, I've got these lines that I actually engraved into this base so I can see where the edges of the wood goes. You see that here? Just a little bit. Yeah, there you go. So you're going to see we're right up to the edge here, where we're lined up there, and this will mirror what's in the software. And then since I manually moved the head, I'm going to have to tell it to rehome so they don't screw up the burn. Start, and then we're going to move over to the lasers.
Moving over to the computer, I'm going to make some inlays for chalkboard or whiteboard for our bar or flight bars. So what I've done here is I'm using V-CarvePro, simply drawn in the boxes. Honestly, I actually copied out the boxes box that I was using for my actual flight board. Pulled this over to created a new file, but using the exact same bar. That way I can set that using the toolpath. So I select all of these, and the toolpath I want to use. In fact, you know what? The toolpath I'm using here is the Inlay toolpath. So select all my boards, pick that, click on straight male inlay, because this is the part I'm going to inlay. And that brings up and I tried it once. The challenge I ran into, and I'm cutting the depth of the boards, I'm cutting them out using a 1/4 inch mill. I think I actually need to do this in at least 2 passes, and I need to add tabs because they're kind of blowing out on me. So the thickness of my tab, we can leave it at that. The length at 1/2 inch, that's fine. Let's do edit tabs. And this should allow me there, that gives me a tab on both sides. I think I actually also want to add one here, just because I saw that thing blow out so poorly. Get them out and see how that works. Because I did already start cutting this and blew up the first 3, I'm actually going to do my selection tool, grab these, and drag them, well, try and drag them up past where my first one was. And I do a calculate, and this will calculate my cut path, which should give me that 1/4 inch bit all the way around, but not cutting out those pieces. Okay, it's actually showing the preview from before, so I'm going to reset the preview. Preview all toolpaths. This does the cuts, and you can see where the different tabs are dropped in. I'm going to export this. Select the toolpath that I want to export. Oh, I do need to make one more change. I want to do this in at least 2 runs versus 1, because I think cutting down all at once is the other thing that's blowing these out. Edit passes. Yeah, I think if I do it at 2 passes, I think that'll work. Recalculate. It's just got 2 passes here. Okay, won't change the preview any. Close this. And then I'm going to export my toolpath and take it over to, I'm going to put that on a USB key. So I pick the toolpath there, click Save Toolpath, and put that on a USB key and take that over to the machine.
Whiteboard, blackboard. See how that works. Now that we're done with on the CNC and the burner, we got our logo, got everything cut out. We got our little chamfers on the back here, so it makes it a little easier to pick up from a table or to set down. And then the company logo. We've also sprayed this with or did a little bit of a lacquer finish on here. And the last piece is to put in our inlay chalkboard so we can write down what is in the various holes. So with this, I'm going to put just a very little bit of a thin set or a thin super glue. It's used for wood. Starbond, pretty good brand. Not a sponsor, unless they want to, not yet. So we're just going to make sure we got this just exactly right. So it looks like I need to take off just a little bit. So I've got this keyed. Yeah. Okay, so we got to take off a little more off of both these corners. I don't want this to get any gap. So this is definitely one of those where you go a little bit, a little more, check it, a little bit more, check it. You don't want to go too far on it. Okay, I think we're there. The other thing, when we tap this in, we're going to use an additional flat surface on it to help ensure that we don't crack this board. Now, this material I'm using, it's can be used for both whiteboard and blackboard. I like the black a little bit better, just for the look that goes with these boards, but we could also do it with whiteboard if we wanted to. Okay. I think we're there. Yeah. Kind of spread this out. Here we go, moment of truth. All right, final product. you want one of these, let me know. We'll make you one. Or now that you've seen the process, make your own. Well, hope you enjoyed that, learning how to build out a flight board, some of the things we do. Obviously, as you build out your own, you want to make it custom and kind of your own thing, but there's some pointers and tips through what we did. Hopefully it was useful to you and entertaining. Till then, have a great afternoon. And I guess now it's my turn for a drink.